Tonight we begin with the president and the struggles of crafting a health care bill, battling back to try to fire up the Senate GOP. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts is on the North Lawn. Good evening, John.
Brett, good evening to you. A White House source tells me it was President Trump and his Chief of Staff Reince Priebus who cooked up the idea of a high-pressure lunch here at the White House today, putting the hard sell on senators to get the health care reform bill through.
In the state dining room today, President Trump gathered together all the Republican senators who would come for a spirited sales pitch on getting rid of Obamacare.
Any senator who votes against starting debate is really telling America that you're fine with Obamacare. But being fine with Obamacare isn't an option for another reason, because it's gone. It's failed.
Well, the vote next week is to simply repeal Obamacare and replace it later. President Trump today repeated his call to repeal and replace Obamacare at the same time, and that Congress should stay in Washington until it's done.
My message today is really simple. We have to stay here. We shouldn't leave town. And we should hammer this out and get it done.
The president also chastised senators who repeatedly voted to repeal Obamacare during the Obama administration, when they knew their vote was nothing more than a political show.
For 7 years, you had an easy route. We'll repeal, we'll replace, and he's never going to sign it. But I'm signing it. So it's a little bit different.
The three senators who voted to repeal Obamacare in 2015 but say they're against it now will come in for some special White House attention, as did Senator Dean Heller of Nevada, an opponent of repeal and replace, who found himself seated right next to the president.
You didn't go out there. This was the one we were worried about. You weren't there, but you're going to be. You're going to be there. Look, he wants to remain a senator, doesn't he?
As he seeks to woo senators on Obamacare repeal, President Trump is lashing out at reports he had a secret second meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin at the G20 2 weeks ago. The president tweeting, quote, "Fake news story of secret dinner with Putin is, quote, sick. All G20 leaders and spouses were invited by the Chancellor of Germany." Press knew. The president talked with Putin for more than 2 hours in a bilateral meeting in Hamburg on July 7th. That night, at the official G20 dinner, the president spent more time with Putin, one-on-one with only a Russian interpreter. The White House denied a report the two spoke for nearly an hour and would not disclose the content of the conversation.
This was a social dinner where the president spoke with many world leaders, as is the purpose. I think it would be incredibly awkward for them to all sit at a dinner and not speak to each other.
The White House accused the press of having a double standard, pointing out that President Obama had private conversations at previous G20s that the press never made an issue of.
There's a very different standard that you guys like to draw between this White House and previous administrations, and you try to create a situation that frankly just wasn't there.
On Obamacare, the Congressional Budget Office today released an estimate of what the repeal bill would do over the course of a decade. The CBO estimates that it would cause 32 million more people to be uninsured and reduce the deficit by some $473 billion. And Brett, some breaking news to report. Fox News has learned that the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, will give an interview to the Senate Intelligence Committee this coming Monday. We understand that will be in private session. Paul Manafort and Donald Trump Jr. will testify in open session on Wednesday. Brett?
Yeah, John, it's important to point out about those CBO numbers that this is about the straight repeal. They're saying that it would give them 2.5 years to come up with something else to replace it with. The CBO doesn't factor in on that number.
No, they don't. This is strictly repeal, and the White House is also making the point, Brett, that when it comes to making these type of estimates, its position is that the CBO hasn't been particularly accurate. Brett?
Okay. John Roberts live on the North Lawn. John, thanks.